a mother of 5, a high-powered job, a comfortable home in the countryside, and $1 million gone, swallowed by a machine in a pub. Lana's story sounds impossible, until you understand exactly how these machines are built, and then it sounds inevitable. Today, I am going to show you what poker machines actually do to a human brain, why some of the smartest, most responsible people alive cannot walk away from them, and why the industry wants you to believe this is simply a personal choice. Where are you watching from? Drop it below, and if you have ever felt that pull to play just one more, this video is going to explain why that feeling is not an accident. Lana O'Shaughnessy was 32 years old when her addiction was finally exposed. From the outside, her life looked like everything people worked toward. 5 children, a loving household, a senior job where she was the boss. Nobody questioned where she was. Nobody tracked her hours. And she used every second of that freedom to disappear. 7 out of every 8 hours at the peak of her addiction were spent in front of a poker machine. She stole from employers. She wrote bad checks. She burned through her first marriage. She missed years of her children's childhoods sitting 3 feet away from a screen, completely unreachable. The total cost, $1 million. 10 years of her life, a marriage, and a guilt she says she may never fully put down. Once I was sitting in front of that machine, my mind was on the machine, nowhere else. Now here is the question nobody in the industry wants you to ask. How does that happen to a person like Lana? The answer is not weakness. It is not stupidity. It is engineering. Professor Michael Walker of Sydney University has spent years studying how poker machines, Pokies, are designed. And what he found is not a game. It is a psychological trap built to exact specifications. The machines are programmed around something called a win-loss sequence. They are designed to give you real wins early, sometimes big ones. Exciting ones. The kind that make your brain release dopamine and lock in the belief that you are close to something. That the next spin could be the one. But those wins are calculated. They are placed deliberately to keep you seated. Because the longer you sit, the more you lose. The machine does not care about the wins it gives you. It only cares about the total it takes from you, and that total is fixed in its favor before you ever sit down. It doesn't matter how smart you are, Professor Walker said. There's no skill. You can't win. It's impossible. Not unlikely. Not difficult. Impossible. And here is what makes it more dangerous than almost any other form of gambling. Poker machine asks nothing of you. No strategy. No decisions. No opponents to read. Just a button. Again and again and again. John Duncan, a 41-year-old who spent 15 years and $300,000 on the Pokies, described what happens the moment he sits down in front of one. You go into a zone, a trance-like state where time and money mean nothing. He compared chasing losses between pubs to being a junkie. Cold sweats, desperation, running from one venue to the next at midnight, hoping the next machine would be the one that gave it all back. There's no shut-off. No warning sign that comes up and says, have you fed the kids? Have you paid your mortgage? Shouldn't you be at work? Now here is the part that will change how you think about every venue that houses these machines. The Pokies in Australia are not a fringe product. There are 117,000 of them across the country in pubs, clubs, RSLs, and casinos. They generate over $9 billion a year in profit. And researchers believe half of that money, roughly $4.5 billion, comes directly from problem gamblers. Not casual players. Not people having a flutter on a Friday night. People who cannot stop. The industry knows this. Governments know this. And for decades, both have looked at those numbers and decided the revenue is worth protecting. Senator Nick Xenophon, one of the few politicians who campaigned seriously on poker machine reform, put it plainly: the biggest jackpot junkies in this country are state governments, who rake in $4 billion a year from poker machines. When the people profiting most from addiction are also the people responsible for regulating it, you do not get regulation. You get silence. The CEO of Clubs Australia, the body that controls those 117,000 machines, was asked directly whether he worries when he watches pensioners and young people sitting alone for hours, hitting the same button, losing money they cannot afford to lose. His answer: people set their own limits. Not everyone has a problem, which is technically true. But it is the same logic as saying not every cigarette causes cancer, while knowing full well the product is designed to be addictive, and while collecting billions from the people it destroys. Catherine was 24 years old when she started working at a casino in Adelaide. Staff were not allowed to gamble at their own venue, so she found the Pokies at nearby pubs instead. She had never gambled before in her life. Within a short period, she was feeding every dollar she earned into the machines. Then money borrowed on credit. Then money she did not have. Over $100,000. A marriage in pieces. The belief that she had ruined everything and everyone she loved. Catherine took her own life. Her mother, Chris, has spent the years since fighting for tighter regulations, arguing that the machines that contributed to her daughter's death remain legal, widespread, and deliberately uncontrolled. She wrote to the coroner. She sat beside politicians. She told the story again and again. The industry responded by saying the machines are not unsafe. Here is what I want you to understand. Lana, John, and Catherine were not unusual people. They were not reckless by nature. They were ordinary people who encountered a product specifically designed to override the part of the brain that tells you to stop. Lana described her relationship with poker machines the way people describe an affair. An obsession. A pull that existed completely separately from everything she loved and valued. Even though you had children at home, a good dose of common sense, none of that was enough to make you stop? No. Once I was in front of that machine, I was entranced. That is not a character flaw. That is a feature. The trance is the product. The dissociation is what the machine is built to create, because a person in a trance does not check the time, does not count what they have spent, and does not leave. One RSL manager in Brisbane, Daryl Wilson, began trialing a card-based system that required players to register before using the machines and set personal limits on time and money. He was considered eccentric for doing it. Clubs Australia refused to support it. The industry argued that encouraging a problem gambler to set limits was somehow worse than setting no limits at all. Read that again. The body representing 117,000 poker machines argued, with a straight face, that giving addicted people tools to limit their own gambling was not the answer. Because the answer, of course, would cost them money. Lana is still fighting it. Every day. She and her second husband Paul have built strict rules around her life. Curfews, limited cash, constant accountability. He described what it was like to be lied to repeatedly by someone he loved. It's demoralizing. And it wasn't because she had no regard for me. It's just part of what addiction makes you become. She cannot forgive herself for what the machines cost her children. She says she may carry that for the rest of her life. It doesn't matter how you feel about yourself, whether you love yourself or hate yourself, whether you have a wonderful life or nothing at all. It'll be there, always. The Pokies are still in almost every pub in the country. The profits are still flowing to the same governments and the same industry bodies. The regulations are still light. The machines are still engineered to keep you sitting. And somewhere tonight, someone is walking into a venue for the first time thinking it is just entertainment. Watch the next video. It shows exactly how online gambling platforms are now using the same psychology, on your phone, with no venue to leave and no closing time.